Okay, hi guys. Today we're going to be doing part one of the Miller's Tale analysis. So as you see, I have printed out the Miller's Tale. It's the one with the star next to it. We're going to start there. Now before this, we had some information that was the prologue to the Miller's Tale. The Miller's Tale is the story that he's telling. He is not in it. The Miller is not in it. But some things to remember from people's prologue bits that they gave us ahead of time. The Miller, he was very loud and bawdy, which meant that he told naughty little jokes. And he was very, uncouth and enjoyed having a really good time and drinking and that sort of stuff. So that's the kind of character that we're having tell this story. So now we need to look at what kind of story he tells that he thinks might entertain everybody. Okay? So let us begin. Some time ago, there was a rich old codger who lived in Oxford and who took a lodger. The fellow was a carpenter by trade, his lodger a poor student who had made some studies in the arts, but all his fancy turned to astrology and geomancy. And he could deal with certain propositions and make a forecast under some conditions. All right, so let's pause. Let's see what's going on here so far. So a codger is an elderly man who's old-fashioned. Geomancy is the influence of stars and land. Okay, so we have a little basic summary right here. So there's this old dude who has a lodger. A lodger is someone who lives or rents a room in his house, from Oxford. So old man as student lodger. The old man is a carpenter, and the student studies astrology and geomancy. And he seems to be good at it because he could forecast things. Okay? He can make predictions. Moving on. So he can make predictions about the likelihood of drought or showers, predict weather, for those who asked at favorable hours, or put a question how their luck would fall in this or that. I can't describe them all. This lad was known as Nicholas the Gallant. So the lodger from Oxford is Nicholas. And making love in secret was his talent. Ooh, that's an interesting detail about him. He has lovers in secret. For he was very close and sly, and took advantage of his meek and girlish look. So his appearance, we have some interesting things about his appearance. He has a girlish look. Now, this would have been attractive at the time because it would have meant that he didn't have to work outside with his physical labor or anything like that. He could be inside and have dainty appearances, which was preferred because then that would mean that he has leisure time and other ways of making money. He rented a small chamber in the Kip. If you'll remember, a Kip is a village. All by himself without companionship. He decked it charmingly with herbs and fruit, so he decorated his area. And he himself was sweeter than the root of licorice or any fragrant herb. His astronomic textbooks were superb. He had an astrolabe. This would determine, it was a tool to determine the stars and planets. And calculating counters laid apart on handy shelves that stood above his bed. His press was curtained coarsely and in red. All right, his press, that's his bed area. and it was coarsely curtained in red. What do we know about red at this time? Who got to have red clothing and that sort of stuff? I believe Melody gave a presentation on that if you're in 7th period. And she talked about how red was a rich color and only certain people could afford it. But remember, he's renting this room, so it's actually the carpenter's. But who knows? Above there lay a gallant harp in sight, on which he played melodiously at night, with such a touch that all the chamber rang. It was the Virgin's Angelus he sang. All right, so the Virgin's Angelus, I would look up, and it's a song about the angels coming to Mary and giving her God's child. So he's pretty educated. He plays the harp. He knows many different songs to sing that have religious significance. Remember, religion is hugely important during this time period. So not only is he making love in secret, but he also is playing songs and wooing ladies with these songs and appearing to be a very blessed man. And people often, and after that he sang King William's Note, and people often blessed his merry throat. And that was how this charming scholar spent his time and money, which his friends had sent. Okay, so that's the little bit about the lodger, and now we're going to find out some stuff about the carpenter. Remember, that's the person who owns the house where the student Nicholas is studying and living. This carpenter had married a new wife not long before and loved her more than life. She was a girl of 18 years of age. Jealous he was and kept her in a cage. For he was old and she was wild and young. He thought himself quite likely to be stung. All right, this is a really important moment. So the carpenter recently married an 18-year-old who is very young and wild. And when it says jealous he was and kept her in the cage, he's not actually keeping her in a cage. He is wanting to keep her inside the house to limit her access to stuff because he thought himself likely to be stung. What would he be stung with? Probably her cheating, right? Or him embarrassing himself because he married someone so much younger than him. So, carpenter is jealous and controlling. Okay, so we've got a young wife and an old man, and then they happen to have a young lodger. I'm sure that will turn out perfectly fine. Okay. He might have known were Cato on his shelf. Cato was a Roman philosopher. So if he had had a Roman philosopher on his shelf, maybe he would. A man should only marry someone like himself. A man should pick an equal for his mate. Youth and old age are often in debate. This is the theme that this story will prove. That you should marry someone like yourself. You should not marry someone who is much older or much younger because it's not going to work out well. And then the Miller's Tale is going to prove this. However, he had fallen in the snare and had to bear his cross as others bear. Okay, so we learned about the carpenter and his new wife. Now we're going to learn all about his wife and what kind of girl she is. She was a fair young wife, her body as slender as any weasel's, and as soft and tender. Oh, lovely. So she is beautiful. She used to wear a girdle of striped silk. Okay, knowing what we know about clothing at this time period, which was really important, we know that silk was expensive, so she dresses well. Okay. Her apron was as white as morning milk, Over her loins, all gusseted means dressed and pleated. White was her smock, embroidery repeated, its pattern on the collar front and back. Inside and out, it was of silk and black. The tapes and ribbons of her milky mutch, a mutch is a little cap that a proper woman would wear, were made to match her collar to a touch. She wore a broad silk fillet. Remember, that was one of our vocab words. Fillet is a ribbon. Rather high, and certainly she had a lecherous eye. If we'll recall, lecherous means that she is always scouting for some sexual encounter. She's a sexy eye. So far, she is very well described as far as what she's wearing, and so that shows us a lot about her status. So even though she's only 18, I mean, she's married to an old, well-known carpenter, so that's significant. Okay. She had plucked her eyebrows into bows, slenderly arched they were, and black as sloes. A sloe is a kind of black fruit. You should look it up. And a more truly blissful sight to see, she was than blossom on a cherry tree, and softer than the wool upon a wether, and by her girdle hung a purse of leather, tasseled with silk and silver droplets pearled. If you went seeking up and down the world, the wisest man you met would have to wrench his fancy to imagine such a wench. Remember, a wench is just a young girl, not more derogatory than that. So, she is blossoming like a cherry tree, so she is very full of life. And she also has some jewels with her and her purse, so she clearly likes money. And her complexion had a brighter tint than a new florin from the Royal Mint. A florin is a kind of coin. So she is a clean, bright face. As to her song, and by song they mean her voice, it was as loud and quick as any swallow's chirping on a rick. A rick is a branch. And she would skip and play some game or other, like any kid or calf behind its mother. All right, this is interesting. They are comparing her, there's a simile here, where they're comparing her to a kid, which is a baby goat, or a calf, a baby cow, behind its mother. So she's very childish. She likes to have fun. She likes to play. Her mouth was sweet as mead or honey, say, a hoard of apples lying in the hay. Skittish she was and jolly as a colt. Okay, skittish and jolly as a colt. So she's, again, being compared to a childish animal. Tall as a mast and upright as a bolt. Out of a bow, her collarette revealed a brooch as big as Boss upon a shield. Okay. A brooch as big as Boss upon a shield? Okay, how big is a shield? Huge, right? So obviously she's wearing very large, flashy jewelry. What does that show us about her? Clearly that she likes to show off her wealth. High shoes she wore and laced them to the top. She was a daisy, oh, a lollipop, for any noble man to take to bed, or some good man of yeoman stock to wed. Okay, this is an interesting choice that Chaucer uses for a lollipop. I'm just going to write double entendre. And if you don't get it, then you're not as smart as Chaucer. Okay. All right, we're going to pause here so that I'm going to break this up into several videos so that if you want to watch a little and then stop, you can. So we're going to stop there. Hope you have a lovely day. Bye.